Time now for another edition of KSAT Q&A. Today we are joined by Mayor Ron Nirenberg, as we are every Wednesday, to talk about the very latest in COVID-19 here locally. Mayor, thanks for being with us. I want to start talking about schools, if we can. We talked about earlier in this show how some religious schools in San Antonio, they're preparing to open their doors to in-class learning prior to Labor Day, and that goes against what Metro Health has tried to put in place. So do you have any idea what the city's response, Metro Health's response, is going to be in determining when those schools could start?
You know, the public health guidance and the local public health authority, which is given, the authority to deal with this issue, is really making decisions based on public health, and that's the way it should be. So the directive is for public and private schools and should be heeded that way. So these, again, are not made through anything other than what can keep our community healthy and safe. And she has made that determination that the best thing to do for our public schools and our private schools is for them to open in person only after Labor Day.
But how does that balance with what Attorney General Ken Paxton said, that religious schools don't have to abide by the after Labor Day guidance?
You know, as I've said before, the Attorney General really has just caused a lot of confusion and has put, has put out these statements that really detract from what public health professionals and medical experts are telling us to keep people safe and healthy. You keep in mind back in April when we had a mask order in place that was protecting the public and has been shown to really stop this turn around the surge that we're seeing. It was saving lives. The Attorney General put out a letter saying that we couldn't do that. The governor had to reverse that and put the order in place, both allow us to do that locally through businesses as well as statewide now. So if our interest is in saving lives and keeping people healthy in our community, we would be best to ignore the political messaging of the Attorney General.
But the reality is there are a lot of schools that say they're not going to do that. Cornerstone says they're going to open, like they normally would. I mean, there are a lot of schools that say they're going to be open despite what Metro Health says. So what's the reality on the ground?
We are going to issue the guidance and, again, ensuring that we are doing so based on the public health guidance alone and not based on anything else. And, it doesn't matter what classification of the school is. If our interest is in keeping people healthy, our public health director, our local public health authority, has issued the directive that public and private schools ought to remain closed for in-person schooling until after Labor Day. It's clearly in the science of what we're looking at for stopping this pandemic and keeping our kids, our teachers, our parents, the community healthy.
Mayor, we're going to continue our conversation on the other side of this break. Stay with us. We are continuing our Q&A with Mayor Ron Nirenberg. And Mayor, we want to be as clear as possible about schools starting, religious schools,
Sure.
Private schools starting. Can Metro Health put in place any kind of penalties or actually prevent private schools from beginning in-person learning prior to Labor Day?
That's still a little unclear given the mass confusion that our Attorney General is trying to create. But we will certainly have some clarification of that from our city attorney. But again, I would appeal to people's sensibilities here. We see hundreds of people dying in our community since July. We see thousands of infections that are occurring. We see how it's affecting all ages, including those infants that we talked about at the briefing today. No one is immune from this virus. The Public Health Authority is simply looking at the medical evidence and what can keep our community safe, including your children, our teachers, the parents, all those folks that depend on that school. If our interest is in protecting those people's lives and their health, we would pay attention to what our medical directors are saying, not elected politicians who have been routinely trying to score political points on this pandemic. And what Dr. Wu is saying is that we simply need to adhere to the guidance and keep this under control by not having in-person schooling until after Labor Day. Again, a traditional time for when schools used to start, but this is again in the best guidance to keep our community healthy and safe.
I want to make a transition now because we talked to Governor Abbott earlier in this show, and I asked him about the fact that both you and the county judge have asked for more local authority. We're seeing counties, Hidalgo, I believe the most recent, that have had a stay-home order issued.
Yeah.
If you had the authority, would you do something like Hidalgo and I believe Nueces County has done, where they've asked people to stay home because of the surging numbers?
You know, the challenge for us is that these orders are not enforceable. When the governor has explicitly pulled that kind of enforceability out of our ordinances, if we go beyond what the state has required or what the state has mandated. But what the public health professionals are telling us is that there's no smoking gun here. We can't simply look at one particular business or one particular activity and say, shut it down and then the pandemic goes away. We have to change our behaviors. Number one, we have to eliminate mass gatherings. So one of the things that we're talking to the governor about is that we have to eliminate all those exceptions from mass gathering rules that are in the state's orders. We need that to happen. We also are grateful for the rollback in some of the activities that contribute to large congregation indoors. That has to be prohibited. We have to continue to wear masks and physical distance. And most importantly, don't let your guard down. If you're not part of a household, then you shouldn't be gathering. Not right now when the virus is so prevalent out there. We all got to do our parts, but you know, we have to focus on those individual behaviors that will begin to see the virus load and the spread of this virus begin to wane.
Mayor Ron Nirenberg, as always, thanks for being with us today.
We'll see you on the Night Beat at 10. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We'll be right back.